Hello, everybody, and welcome on into Sidelines. I'm Drew Patrick. On this episode, we introduce the new strength and conditioning coach. We preview baseball season that is coming right around the horizon, and we review the weekend that was in track and field. Welcome back here to Sideline. Let's take a peek behind the curtain here of Mansfield Athletics with a new face to the program, the new strength and conditioning coach here at Mansfield University, Mr. Greg Gustin. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Sure thing.
So let's talk about your move to here, Mansfield, going back into a strictly school aspect of college athletics. What do you think you can bring really to this position?
Well, I kind of have a wide range of experiences. I started my career in college athletics. I was at a Division III university in Pittsburgh. And then after a few years there, I moved on to work in the private sector. So, there I was able to work with a lot of college athletes, but also some youth and some professional. So I've seen a lot of different ability levels and types of athletes. So I think just that breadth of experience kind of helps to pull into Mansfield here.
So here at Mansfield, you got a bunch of teams. I think the most interesting sport that we have here in terms of your job is probably sprint football, in terms of you have to be able to build up the speed and the muscle without putting on weight. So you have a little bit of wrestling. That's, I guess, the biggest comparison that I can think of. But specifically with a sport like that, what are the challenges there?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head with trying to be as fast and strong as possible without getting too heavy. They have to obviously make their weight. And there is definitely some similarities with how wrestling would kind of manage that. For now, basically my plan for now is just going to be, train as if we're just regular football players. And then, start as we get a little bit later into this off season, and especially in the summer, take a little bit closer look at where guys are. The biggest thing is going to be making sure we don't put on excess muscle mass. We want the muscle we have to do something for us. So mainly speed and power. So, those are going to be conversations that you have to look a little bit closer to season, especially through the summer for guys. But for now, we're going to try to build a good base, and then we can be more specific from there.
And of course, the teams that are in season right now with both basketball teams and the indoor track and field team, what are really the differences between in-season training and that out-of-season training?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is just managing load. With any sport, that's really the main factor. With each of them, there's a little bit different way of how to do it based on their competition schedules. Like something like track, they compete most of the time once a week. So you have the week to, you can get a lot of work done early in the week and then taper out through the end. Whereas, let's say, basketball right now is twice a week. So it's a lot harder to get a really good strength session in without affecting their practice or even their energy for games. But the biggest thing is consistency. So if you're really consistent with what you're doing, then it has less of an effect on how they can perform. When you lose that consistency, then everything you do makes them stiff and sore and harder to go in and perform. So consistency is big, but it's really just managing overall load.
And going back to kind of your general philosophy of what are the things that you really focus on in your program, what are your main goals for the group? And they probably differ per sport, but what do you think is your main focus when you bring a team in and you work with a team? What is the thing that stands out the most that is probably the most important aspect of strength and conditioning?
Well, I mean, the underlying thing that we always have to keep in mind is whatever we do has to translate to performance. So it's sometimes overlooked in this field where, people can kind of get hung up on strength training, just getting as strong as possible. But the reality is strength doesn't mean much if it doesn't translate. So the underlying factor for all sports is no matter what we do, we look for ways to find transfer into their sport. So, I definitely am big on adding, sprint development, agility development, conditioning, and just general efficient movement practice. So those are the kind of things I think help to translate what we do in the weight room and otherwise into performance on the field. And from there, like I said, it kind of individualizes by sport, but that's really for me the biggest thing is keeping that in mind and hammering home the fundamentals in the weight room, because ultimately that's what builds the base.
Those fundamentals and that technique, I think another thing that's kind of not seen as high is how important technique in terms of in terms of a lift, in terms of a run, how important and how much do you stress learning that technique of things?
Yeah, that's rule number one for me is attention to detail and making sure things are done right. So coming in here as a new, the new guy, my first goal is to make sure that regardless of how anything was done in the past or how people are used to doing things, just to make sure things are now done to my standard. And that starts with technically sound lifts, and even our movement drills like sprint development. We have to make sure we're sprinting with good technique for that actually to translate into speed on the field too, and also reduce risk of injury. So, I definitely pay a lot of attention to that, and I try to make sure that whatever it is we do, we're paying attention to how we're doing it.
And this is, you mentioned you are the new guy here on campus. How has this it's been almost a month now.
Yeah.
How has this first month been? What are some of the things that have stood out to you, and what are some of the things that you didn't expect but are adapting to?
It's been good. I mean, the biggest thing is, just been busy with getting things up and running. The first couple weeks were, trying to meet with coaches and get athletes in for their lifts, but also create programs that they can start on. And now that everyone's kind of running on their first block of programming, it's cooled down a little bit where I have some room to breathe, but still, teams are coming in back to back all day. And so it's keeping me on my toes. But if anything was unexpected, maybe it's just how welcoming everyone's been and making me feel at home here. So it's been a really smooth transition.
Well, and then looking at this group and looking at your time in there, an important part, or maybe an overlooked part of the strength and conditioning program is kind of that relationship, that coach relationship between you and a student athlete and you and the head coach and assistant coach of the team. Mm-hmm. How do you feel that balance is where you obviously work with the head coaches, but to keep an athlete motivated and to keep an athlete prepared, especially if they're having a bad day and you still want to get quality time in the weight room, what is your style of trying to motivate those kinds of times?
Yeah, it's a little bit case by case. You have to kind of take the group first and kind of motivate the group, and then you're gonna, the more athletes, you're gonna find times and instances where someone doesn't have it, and sometimes that's that they're physically not ready, or other times it's mentally they're not ready. So first thing is pointing it out, or at least noticing, so that you can begin to address it. And when it's a physical thing, it's definitely understandable because there's a lot of load, both psychological and physical, in being an athlete. So whether it's trying to reduce load and just keep them moving at an intensity that they can maintain with just some modification, that's one way to keep people going. But primarily, the thing that I'm looking for is, just even if you don't feel great, come in and pay attention and, at least do things to the best of your ability that day. Like I said, being able to motivate people is kind of just feeling out who they are and how they present to you on a day-to-day basis. So that's going to take some time, honestly, just to get to know everybody, because so many athletes, it's hard enough to learn their names, mm-hmm. let alone their personalities. So it'll take some time.
Yeah, absolutely. Early in your tenure, we're looking forward to it. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sidelines continues after this. Do not go. Welcome back here to Sidelines. Let's talk track and field as we have two members of the track and field team in Kevin Heeman and Lyndsey Payne. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
So you guys pretty much work all year round, have cross country into indoor, into outdoor. So let's start with that and talk about the benefits of that, going from focusing on cross country to still being in here for indoor.
It's nice doing it year round because, you know, if you stop and then you have to get back into shape, so you're always in shape. And it's nice going from that longer cross country distance to kind of a shorter indoor to kind of take a break, but still do some fast stuff.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It gives the break from going from cross country straight to outdoor track because you have that couple month period where training, you're not really training a whole lot. You get out of shape and you're not in your best racing shape.
So Kevin, and for you, this being your freshman year here, have not done really a lot of indoor track in your career.
No.
So what has that change really been like for you?
It's been different. I will say it's definitely more of a beating on the legs. I feel personally that it's a lot harder to do indoor track than to have that break, but I am learning a lot from it, and I noticed that my fitness is still there and it's still improving.
And I think a thing with the indoor track that a lot of people don't realize in terms of running that distance is that is a tight turn going around there. So the adaptation to that, what has that been like for you guys?
So I just did my first indoor 5K ever. So it's different from going from just doing 8 laps in the mile to 25 laps. And you really start to feel it in your right calf because you're always pushing off, like going round and round and round and round. I don't know if I have a preference indoor or outdoor. I generally like both. It's nice because, I mean, it stinks that it's a shorter track, but it's nice that you don't have to worry about weather conditions.
That's true. And Kevin, same thing to you.
Yeah, it's same exact thing she said. It's definitely more of a beating on the legs. I feel it in my right calf as I'm doing the 3K and 5K, but yeah.
So let's talk about this weekend, though. I mentioned to you, Lyndsey, you were doing double duty here. You went with the guys to Bucknell, and then you went and supported your team down at Susquehanna, but you mentioned that 5K. Talk me through that race. What were some of the things that really worked for you?
So I want to give a big thanks to my coaches because without them, I would not have known what I was doing. I knew my splits. I knew I wanted to do 44s each lap and just kind of hold on as best as I can. There was one point where I was running a bit too wide because like in the mile, you're kind of out into lane 2 fighting for a spot. But he had said to me, you know, you need to tuck in. You're running way too wide. It's way too long of a race for you to be out in that lane. And he kind of talked me through it. The first half, a couple girls just kind of pulled me through. And then, you know, the last mile, it was really fighting back and forth each lap with a Bucknell girl. So, yeah.
And then Kevin, with the mile at that Bucknell track meet, what were some of the things you saw in your race?
I saw the number 1 and 2 seeds weren't out in front like I thought they would be. It was mainly me and a kid from Juniata who were kind of stuck together for 1,200 meters out, and I kind of had to rely on him to keep me pushing through the race. So it wasn't as fast as I wanted it to be, but it was nice having that other person there to just exchange first and second place with.
I think, and a lot of people don't understand the true aspect of pacing. You're both distance runners, so that pacing on the track, it's very different than your traditional pacing on an open cross-country course or even the outdoor track. It's very different. What are some of the things that you look on? And you said you were running 44s. Explain to us exactly what that means when you're looking for that time and that pace. What does that mean?
So in cross-country, we really just use our GPS watches, and it kind of tells you what mile pace you're going. And then, of course, when you get to championships, it's all about place. But in track, you know, you don't want to go out too hard. You want to be able to follow your pace. And it's something that we practice in every workout. You know, he says you're doing 350s at, you know, a certain pace, we always look at our watches every 100 to make sure we're doing it, so that when race day comes around, you know, we don't really look at our watches, we listen for him to yell like what we are running.
Yeah, during cross it is different because the gun goes off and you go out and you're in a field and you're relying on your GPS watch, where indoor track, thanks to the coaches for being there and giving the splits, but it is really difficult to, you know, make sure you know your splits as you're running, because you want to be able to hit those splits evenly.
So is it a certain factor that you want that time to almost become muscle memory? I mean, you guys do a lot of different events. You don't have strictly one distance event that really you stick with. You sometimes have the 3K, 5K mile. You got a lot of different speeds and things to look at and distances to look at. So how do you try and maybe build that up into a muscle memory type thing?
Well, we do it in our workouts. When we do shorter, like 200s, 300s, that's obviously at our mile goal pace. So we kind of already know, but it's a big learning process. Like I would say my freshman year, I wasn't the best at it, but it's something that you really have to work at in order to do it right and do it successfully.
And then, so you guys here with the new team, and really you get extra people with the track team that you had with the cross country team. What has that team camaraderie been like? Because it's fascinating, truly, the fact that you guys have worked out with a group that is part of that group for a while, and then you have more people coming in and joining your team. What has that relationship dynamic really been like for you guys?
It's a really good dynamic, I would say. It's nice to see like some pole vaulters and some high jumpers qualifying for PSACs this year, and going to the meets early and cheering them on is a really fun part of it.
Yeah, it's great. I love having a variety of different people on the team. They come together, like the jumpers, the sprinters. It's really great having them and cheering them on.
So very quickly, coming up, you guys have 2 meets coming up, one in Boston, one in Susquehanna. What are your goals for that meet?
I think I'm traveling to Boston with the men, but I don't know what I'm racing at. I'm guessing it's the 3K. I think we're going to hammer a fast 3K because as we see on the list, there aren't a lot of people qualified yet. So it might be the event to do at PSACs.
I will be going to Boston as well, and I believe I'm also running the 3K there. Coach and I have been talking, and we're thinking I can get under 9 minutes. I want to try to get into the 8:40s, I think, so yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
And Sidelines continues after this. Don't you go anywhere.
Small community, close-knit, it's beautiful. Now, as we join UPMC, it just opens a whole new world.
Together, UPMC and Susquehanna Health are bringing life-changing medicine to north central Pennsylvania.
UPMC brings extraordinary innovation to virtually every aspect of the work we do.
Exchanging ideas, sharing research, it's a tremendous opportunity to learn in real time with world-class experts.
Changing lives every day. UPMC Susquehanna.
From court to court and lane to lane, under the lights or under the sun, no one delivers Division II sports like NCAA.com. The center of D2 is inside the NCAA.com hub, with exclusive highlights of every sport and live broadcasts of every Division II championship found nowhere else. Make NCAA.com yours, the home of Division II college sports.
Welcome back into Sidelines. Let's talk baseball as the baseball season is on the near horizon as we have head coach Andrew Shalott. Coach, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, baseball season is right around the corner. Next weekend, it begins with a trip down to North Carolina. Early on in the season, what have been your preparations with the weather not cooperating all the time?
Well, I mean, we've been stuck in the gym just about every day, and actually we are hoping to get outside today and tomorrow to work on some things that aren't real conducive to being, worked on in the gym. So, look, right now it's about stretching our pitchers out, getting their stamina up so they're ready to go for their first starts, and we're just getting a lot of hitting inside. And the next couple of days here, while we can get outside, we're going to hammer as much defensive stuff. Outfielders are going to get fly balls for the first time, and just getting to throw more than the 90 to 100 feet that you have in a gym. So we're really looking forward to these next 2 days.
So what are the things, though, that you have to focus on when you're inside? What are the little things that you can work on and really try to get better?
Well, we still work on quite a bit of defensive stuff there, but it's more fundamental stuff. It's really hard to set up like a diamond that simulates even when we're doing our bunt defenses and things like that, you really can't simulate the full throw, which we can do out here on the baseball field today. But we just do a lot of fundamental defensive stuff and spend a lot of time. I mean, we have 3 full-length cages, so we have a lot of room to do some hitting stuff, and that leaves room for the pitchers in the whole middle of the gym to get their throw. We have to make shift, things. We get that big drop-down net so they can kind of simulate a little bit of a longer throw, but still just being outside is so much more beneficial.
So as we look ahead, as the season begins coming up here, what are the challenges of a long trip like that, going down to Cary, North Carolina? What are those challenges? Getting everyone focused. It's your first real game action of the year, plus you're quite a bit away from home.
Well, I mean, look, I think they're going to be very excited. I mean, it's a long bus trip, but I think at least for the first weekend, it's like, hey, it's snowing up in Pennsylvania. We're going to get outside and play. They can get through that. I think the biggest thing is, just not having the ability to be outside, not playing yet. Like when we play that first 9-inning game and then you get up the next morning, you play 2 more games right after that. I think it takes a little bit of time for their bodies to get adjusted to that. You're going to have a lot of people that are really, really sore after the first game. And even it takes a while to get used to that, because then we have a couple trips the following weekends where we go Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's going to be the same thing. For that, it's just, and after that, you get caught up.
How important is those early back-to-back type games, considering you will have that throughout the season, those doubleheaders back-to-back?
Well, it's beneficial a lot. First of all, we're playing. I mean, we're opening up with Assumption and Lemoyne, 2 very good baseball teams, 2 teams that are very comparable to what we see during the season. And then the next weekend we're down there and we play Concord and Fairmont, teams that are traditionally 2 of the better teams in the Mountain East Conference. So we're playing teams that will prepare us for what we're going to see during the season.
And I know it's early, and I know you haven't really had the full look at everyone, but who has been some of the players who have stood out to you early in this season?
There's too many to list. I mean, I see so much improvement where we were at this point last year. Mm-hmm. Now, I preface that by saying that, offensively, we were 260th out of 260 Division II teams in hitting last year. So there was the capability for us to move forward. But, I think it's just new voices, just new philosophy, just, new practice schedule. I think the guys are reinvigorated a little bit. And, look, they all saw the preseason baseball pool where we're picked to finish last, and just use that as a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, motivation to get better.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Is that something that you approach to your guys at all? You said that they've seen it, but do you bring it up at all for motivation, or do you just kind of let it be, that's one thing and we have to focus?
I haven't said anything yet. I'll be honest, I didn't even see it the day that it came out. But, at some point, if I think they need it, I'll use it. I'll be like, hey, this is what people think of you. And to be honest, up to this point, that's what we've earned, and now it's our job to change the narrative.
So, one last thing here, looking at this first weekend, what are the things you are looking for in terms of improvement-wise from the previous year in that first week? What are the big things that you want to focus on?
I just want us to be fundamental. I just want us to play the game right and play hard, regardless of the score and situation of the game, and just compete for the 23 innings that we're going to play the first weekend.
And then lastly, this is the final thing. I'll get you out on this. Overall goals, looking at the season, way ahead. What do you hope to accomplish with this team?
Well, I mean, look, right now, until mathematically we don't have a chance, our goal is to win a national championship.
All right, Coach. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Sidelines continues after this. Do not go anywhere.
It's all part of Mother Nature's perfect blend, the keystone of the Keystone State. Visit Potter Tioga, a 2-county scenic outdoor haven conveniently located, yet worlds apart. A place where you can kick back, unwind, and forget about the pressures of life. Disconnect and reconnect with your friends, family, or even yourself while surrounded by nature's beauty. So start planning your adventures today at visitpottertioga.com.
That is all we have for you this week, folks. To stay up to date on all things Mountaineer athletics, head over to GoMounties.com and make sure you come back here tomorrow for Mounties Midweek. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week. Happy birthday, Houston! Nailed it.